Need help? Email Dale at help@trustdale.com. You're tuned in to Trust Dale Radio. Here's your consumer investigator, Dale Cardwell.
And you are tuned in to Trust Dale Radio, and we're glad you are. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a first-time listener, then, you know, now you're kind of getting a flavor of the show. We cover buying decisions. We cover contractual disputes. We cover contractors that have taken advantage of people that we have an opportunity to help you with. If that's the case, you can go to trustdale.com and send us an email at help@trustdale.com. But the second half of the show is just as interesting as the first half. We have Lee Meriwether with Meriwether and Tharp in the studio with us. How are you, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. What we're talking about today is basically late spring and summer, typically wedding seasons. But as you know, as Lee has said, you might not be seeing quite as many invitations in the mail as marriage rate is declining. Joining us is Lee, and Trustdale's family law expert. Are you? I mean, it's not really impacting you guys, I'm sure.
It's not really impacting us, but it is a serious situation, and the reason why I want to talk about it is because people don't understand what's going on.
Okay.
And so as far as what's going on with the marriage rates, you know, there's if you look at like the Pew Center, and I'm going to actually look at this.
Okay.
The Pew Research Center analyzed the census data recently, and they found that in the 1960s that 1 in 10 adults from their age of, over the age of 25 had been reported being married. And
so back in the 60s, it was 1 in 10
had never been married.
Okay, so 9 out of 10 people had been married.
Right, over the age of 25.
Over the age of 25, okay.
Right, so in 2012, only 1 in 5 adults ages 25 and older have never been married.
Interesting.
So it's dropping almost, not quite by half, but close.
Right.
Okay, so that brings up a question. If they're not getting married and they're living together, clear me up on this. If you're together for a certain period of time, isn't there some type of common law type marriage that kicks in if you're living under the same roof? Or is that
many of the states have done away with common law marriage. That used to be the case. Right. So like in Georgia, I think it was 7 years. If you were married for 7 years.
Or living together.
Living together, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that created a common law marriage.
Okay.
But they did away with that.
Okay.
So it doesn't exist anymore.
All right. Well, that makes sense.
Okay, so why are these marriage rates dropping?
Well, there is a wide range of reasons that people have put out there and researchers have put out there. I'll tell you from my personal perspective, just seeing it being in the doing divorces for 20 years now, I'll say that, if you watch TV, okay, and usually TV is kind of a reflection of what's going on because TV companies, they want to make money, so they trying to sell what's hot.
Yeah, they show what's reflected.
You got to be relate to the show, so it should reflect what's going on.
Right. So if you look at it, a lot of them portray marriage as not being fun and happy anymore. And so there's this stigma attached with two things, marriage and divorce. And then there's this other thing out there where this statistic out there that's saying that 50% of marriages end in divorce, and that statistic actually is not correct by any stretch of the imagination.
Was it correct at one time? I'm going back into the 80s and 90s. It seemed like that's when I remember hearing that.
So it was never actually correct.
Oh, okay.
So in the 70s, when all the states enacted a no-fault divorce, it was predicted that the divorce rate was going to reach 50%.
And it never did.
It never did. If you look yeah.
That's amazing because we've all heard that statistic.
Yeah, and it's there's no basis for it.
Wow.
So, but if you look at the 2009 census, okay, 72% of the women in the comes from a book written by Shanti Feldman, but apparently women report better than men. They're more honest.
Got it.
But 72% of the women reported to be in their first marriage. 70% of all women in the United States.
Oh, well, that debunks it right there.
Mm-hmm.
Which means, now, of the 28% that were not in their first marriage, that includes death.
Wow.
So the divorce rate is actually, as of 2009 at least, is less than 28%.
See, that's pretty amazing. And I do remember that very clearly, that statistic. And I'm going to throw my own theory out there because I mentioned to Dale the other day that as a baby boomer, it's over. because we ruled. We were the leading population for decades.
Right.
And I just heard the other day that the millennials have exceeded us at a 75 million. Well, the millennials grew up with that statistic.
Yes.
So they're the ones who I think are skeptical about getting married because their parents may have been divorced, or at least they grew up with that theory that 50% of marriages end in divorce. Which, folks, we're here to tell you right now that's not true. So get out the wedding bells.
It's not true. And,
That's right.
and the other thing is that, some people just feel like, and these are anecdotal pieces from my practice, is that people say, well, I don't feel like I need a piece of paper, a marriage certificate to say I love my girlfriend or boyfriend. And, they just, and the other thing is that children being born out of wedlock no longer has the stigma it once did.
Well, that's true, too.
So you start combining all those things, and then you have a decline in the marriage rate.
Isn't that amazing? That is absolutely amazing. So, Lee, do these never-minded adults,
never married
adults? I'm sorry, adults.
I'll make the font bigger next time.
Thank you. Well, if I get the microphone out of my face, but he always comes in and pushes it right up here, so I'm going to try to read.
Okay, let's
blame
blame Alfie now.
It's Alfie's fault. It's your fault.
Do these never married adults? Are they avoiding the issues that divorce would cause?
Most of the time, they don't. So there's two areas where you're going to still have problems. One, if you have a couple that gets together and buys a home, and two, a couple that gets together and has children.
Okay.
And so there's a huge increase in what's called legitimation cases and child support cases associated with the second part. But if you have a boyfriend and girlfriend, and or I guess now same-sex couple,
right.
They get together and they buy a house. If they break up, there's no divorce law to govern how to deal with that house.
That's right, and that gets sticky.
It does get sticky. There is a thing what's called there is this action, and it's a civil action, not a domestic action. Domestic's a term, and I'm speaking in Georgia. I'm pretty sure most of the other states have something similar, but it's called there's a legal partition, there's equitable partition.
Mm-hmm.
Legal partition means they just split up the property. If there's like 2 or 3 owners, they can split up. Well, you can't split a house in half.
No, you split the equity and sell it.
So it's
or
ordered,
buy one,
right.
buy out, buy one, buy the other out.
And the procedure is actually onerous. If you have to file something with court, the judge will order that 3 appraisals are done. So you have 3 appraisers involved, and then
we've already heard how it's really hard to get one appraisal these days.
Right,
that's
right,
way
exactly.
low.
So don't get in a hurry.
So it's very onerous, and if the 2 parties can't work it out, you're going to be spending all kinds of money in the courts trying to figure out what to do with this house.
That's true. So on the positive side, even though marriages are down, do you think that the people who are getting married are taking it more seriously?
That's a good question.
I wonder.
I don't have enough data to answer that question. Well, I will say from my perspective, and y'all have had me on before where I've talked about my wife and I have a personal marriage ministry, and I do see a lot of people in there being very serious about it and really working on their marriage. So, but I'm in that environment, so I'm obviously biased. So I would love to say that a lot more people are taking it seriously. But in truth, I think what's happening is we're so busy today that people aren't as taking it as seriously as they should. They get caught up in everything that's going on, the busyness of life. They have children, and the extracurricular activities has consumed a lot of parents, and so we've actually had a rise as far as in the divorces of the people where the children of the children that get they go on to college, and then also we have empty nesters, and they look at each other and say, "Who are you?"
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So.
Yes, my sister is about to become one of those. Her youngest is going off to college, and I sent her a text the other day and said, "Please don't kill Tom." But I think they're looking forward to to the next phase.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
See, I have that all taken care of. I'm pretty sure my children are never leaving home.
Yes,
I've made it far too comfortable.
I think you're just going to become a collective there.
Yeah, we're just like a little commune. Carter's commune going.
I love it. Folks, you're listening to Trustdale Radio, and we're glad you are. If you are contemplating divorce, or you know someone who's in the middle of maybe a troubled marriage, divorce may not be the answer, but Lee Meriwether and Meriwether and Tharp are the answer. And Lee's talking with us about what some of the pitfalls and things that go through with a divorce when it comes to all types of dividing up the property or just coming to that decision. I love the fact that Meriwether and Tharp preaches, work on it first. Maybe
That's
divorce is not the answer, and that's awesome. So come on back, folks. We're going to talk with Lee Meriwether just a little bit more.
Fighting for you and finding solutions. This is Trust Dale Radio. Here's your consumer investigator, Dale Cardwell.
This is Trust Dale Radio, and we're glad you're listening. And we're talking divorce with Lee Meriwether and Meriwether and Tharp. But sometimes divorce is not an option because you
didn't get married.
You didn't get married. And, we've talked in the first half about stuff. And, folks, stuff really, can, I guess, be important, but it's not as important as the children involved. And that's what we want to kind of take on from the second part. Lee, what happens if a couple who are together have children but they're not married?
So the first thing that needs to happen is at the hospital when you have the birth certificate, the father should sign on there. They changed the laws in Georgia a few years ago where the father can legitimate on the birth certificate or part of that process.
Okay.
Before that, he had to go to court to legitimate, and if the father does not legitimate the child, the father has no rights, no legal rights until that child's legitimated.
Can you also
So by legitimated, you mean sign off that they do believe themselves to be the father,
right? And they're acknowledging that this is the legitimate child, and that allows the child also to inherit from the father.
Could that also be done through DNA testing?
So there's a process. So let's say the father wasn't present, or there was here's a good example. So years ago, before they had that statute change, there was a child born, and the husband and wife, the father and the mother, who never got married, are in the same house, and they live together. And let's say the child's 12, and they decide it's not working out, we're going to break up.
Right.
Okay? And father moves out. Well, father has no rights if he never legitimated because he couldn't back then. What he has to do, he has to go to court, and has to be it can actually be filed in juvenile court, but it's usually filed in superior court. It's a legitimation action.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a court order. You ask the judge to order that you are the legitimate father of this child, and that allows the child to inherit, and that also opens up the door for the father to get parenting time and have it established officially by court record. And
so before
this has a lot of layers to it.
It does.
Yeah. So so the advice is to legitimate now on the birth certificate.
Right. Now that doesn't fix another problem though. If they break up and the father moves out or the mother moves out, there's no what's called original custody determination. So that, father and mother, there's nothing, let's put it this way, is when both parents are legally recognized as the parents, the
right.
father and mother, they each have a 100% interest in that child. When I hate to say use the word interest, but
right.
Pardon
legal.
that. I'm just legal interest.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I'm not trying to make the child's not property.
No, I know.
So I'm just trying to explain it, which creates an obvious conflict if they each have a 100%.
Sure.
Creates a conflict. So you have to go to court to get a judge to issue an order that says mom has this parenting time and dad has this parenting time.
And the judge decides that?
If the party we believe in being resolution focused, so most courts are going to want the parties to go to mediation and try to work it out ahead of time.
Right.
And even in let's say the best case scenario is mom and dad say, you know what, let's establish who has what time with the children and what sort of legal rights we're going to have in regards to the children. It's normally joint legal custody and some sort of parenting time arrangement. The best scenario is they decide that up front.
Yes.
And then they do a consent parenting plan with the court, which means you don't have to litigate it. And you do that ahead of time. And the reason you want to even if you have an agreement between the two of you want a judge to sign off on it, because you never know what's going to happen a year from now or 2 years from now. There may be a problem. There may be a dispute, and you want that piece of paper to fall back on.
Exactly. Well, that certainly makes sense. What happens to the mother who decides to stay in the home, raise the children, and the father just leaves? What kind of support can she get?
Well, she's got a few options. The first thing is she could go to child support services, even if there hasn't been a legitimation action filed, even if he has not been deemed to be the legal father. She can go to child support services or hire a lawyer. Mm-hmm. So the child support services is a free option, obviously dealing with the government. So there's great people doing it. I had a guy come work for us last year that worked for child support services. He's a very smart guy. they're a little overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, but it's a free service.
Okay.
So she can go to that, and they will file an action against him and get child support from him, and he'll have to pay it. So it's a great option for people that don't have a whole lot of money, can't afford an attorney. If somebody wants the process to happen a little bit quicker, you go hire a lawyer, and they'll bring a child support action to get child support.
Well, and that makes sense. There are so many issues financially. You know, I'm sure that could be a challenge. And I guess with if marriage and marriage is in fact down, you know, that means more people are going to be living together. More people are going to be having children together and stuff together. So this is great advice for folks out there who say, I don't need that piece of paper. Well, you might not need that marriage.
There is a reason for that piece of paper.
Right.
I mean,
and to go to
and if you're not going to do that, follow the guidelines.
And since we're here to help people, I want to take your question one step further.
Okay.
Let's say you have what appears to be a great relationship at first. So mom or dad are living together, and they discuss, well, mom quitting what she's doing, her job, and staying home with the children, which is a great situation for the kids. And then dad, 4 years later, says, I'm out of here, and takes off. Mom can't pursue alimony. If they've been together for a long time, mom doesn't have any options when it comes to alimony. She can't make a claim. He can't be ordered to pay her alimony because they were never married. She also, let's say she quit her job and he says, well, I'll contribute to my 401k while you take care of the kids. Well, she can't make a claim to his 401k either because they were never married.
So what I'm hearing is that little piece of paper that so many people are eschewing actually does provide you a lot of legal rights. It may be...
And protection.
If you should change your mind, it might be a little trickier, but it doesn't seem to be much trickier than trying to do this without that little piece of paper.
It's not just financial. It has everything to do with the kids and how you move forward. Okay, I'm going to complicate it a little bit. He brings a child into the relationship.
Okay.
From another relationship. And it's a young child, so she's raised this child for 10 years, and now things have split up. But she wants to continue having visitation rights or whatever.
Well, that child is not her child. So if he just takes off and with his son or daughter, she can't have a relationship.
There's nothing she can do.
Nothing legal.
Nothing legal.
I mean, the two of them can work out whatever they want,
right.
but there's nothing legally she can do.
Wow. That piece of paper that they say we just don't
Well, but I mean,
need.
in a case like that, even in that case, if you brought a stepchild into a marriage, it wouldn't necessarily.
Right.
She still wouldn't
have any rights. The only time she might get rights is if the other parent was in the picture and she did a step parent adoption or
True,
vice versa.
The adoption has to go through.
Right, the adoption. For her to get it, her or him, if you flip the gender role there, there'd have to be a step-parent adoption.
It's pretty interesting. Maybe it's just the phase of life I'm in. I just have not heard of divorces among people I know. I don't know if it's, again, I'm, in my 50s now, and, I guess everybody's either remarried again and happy or whatever. this has not been on my radar, Amy. I don't know how you made it.
Wow, I managed to come up with a topic that has not been on your
radar.
radar.
Which is very rare.
That's true. Yeah. I managed to
Maybe if I think about it, I'll come up with something that I'm not even aware of.
I stumped Buddy. This is amazing.
I know.
I was I was born in the 70s, and our previous guest, a lot of us grew up. It was more unusual that there was a parent marriage. Our friends' parents were together.
Right.
It was very odd. I can think of one or two where they were married.
It is amazing.
So,
what else is going on in that world?
Well, so another thing that we see issues with is I had this poor lady call one time. Her and her boyfriend were together over 10 years, and he had built a business up during this time period, and she thought she was going to have an interest in that business, and then he broke up with her. As soon as he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and she's left with the kids and can't go after alimony or a part of the business.
They weren't married?
They weren't married.
Wow. That's amazing.
That little paper seems a little more
folks, let's rethink
nowadays.
Let's rethink that. And with the help of Lee Meriwether of Meriwether and Tharp, I think we have. Lee, tell folks how they find you.
Obviously on Trustdale's website.
Wonderful.
And
give him that $5, Amy.
But you can also find us at mtlawoffice.com. That's M as in Mary, T as in Tom, mtlawoffice.com.
Well, thank you as always for coming down and spending time with us. You helped a lot of folks today.
Great.
And folks, we'd like to help you some more, so come back and we'll do it again. Thank you for listening.